Hey, it's Aaliyah, and I am back with another conversation. So, Daily Conversations is all about sharing people's why, their impact, their story to inspire and educate anyone out there, right? To make a change, to go after what you want in life. Even if you're not, the richest person, right? There are people out here, and I love making this statement because it's so true. There are people out here who are not millionaires, who are not billionaires. You do not see them on the news. You do not see them on social media with lots of followers, right? Who are like putting in real work, making real change, doing things in their community. And we cannot forget about these people. And I love to highlight people like me, right? That are on the boots on the ground, that are like boots on the ground doing the work
Okay.
to make the change. And so I have a special guest today. I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, something interesting about yourself, and what you do.
For sure, happy. And thank you so much, Aaliyah, for inviting me to be a part of your vision. I'm super excited and I'm happy to be here and I want to be here. So, first of all, I just want to put that out there into the ether and get the energy in the right direction. So, I'm going to start with who I am and something special about me and what I do. Okay. Um, my name is Sakénya McDonald. I am a educator. I am a Black feminist scholar. I am a daughter, I'm a partner, I'm a mother, I'm all of those things, but I'll go ahead and I'll kind of give my academic credentials just a little bit to frame the conversation for today and also talk a little bit about um, how all of that ties into what I actually do in the community. So I earned my doctorate's degree in sustainability education. My dissertation looked at twice exceptional girls of color and power dynamics. So I spend a lot of time talking about institutional and organizational power. And I don't think people talk about it a lot. It's very ubiquitous, but it's a conversation that I think is especially prevalent given the current political situation. So my dissertation is I'm definitely drawing on all of that experience and everything that I do in my everyday. I'm a qualitative researcher. I currently work at Northern Arizona University here in Flagstaff, Arizona. My role there is Director of Interdisciplinary Education and Training, which means I spend a lot of time doing a lot of administrative things, but I also support programs and initiatives that help students with intellectual, developmental, and other types of disabilities as they transition into college environments. And I also teach disability studies to future practitioners and professionals in the field. I'm also the owner of Deniese and Company, which is a boutique consulting firm and a boutique consulting firm that really specializes in connecting Black girls and women to research. So you talked a little bit about, right, like getting the boots on the ground and being the people out there. And I really strongly believe that Black girls, Black women are doing the work, but nobody is really out there collecting the data, synthesizing the data, and even knowing how to approach presenting that data. And so a lot of the work that we do just kind of goes unseen. And I'm really trying to change that and connect organizations to these communities because I know that these are communities of power. Something about me, well, I guess there's a lot. I just got back actually from Cambridge, UK, and Edinburgh, Scotland, last week, where I was presenting at a feminist conference on the topic of sacred literature, archetypes, and Black liberation, Black women liberation. So yeah, that's one of my other things that I like to dabble in. I'm a poet, I'm a writer, and I love animals. That's like I'm one of those people that needs to stop on the side of the road and oh my goodness, there's some horses on the pasture. I need to go let them free. And my partner's like, no, those horses are happy where they are. Leave them where they are, please. And I love riding my bike. That is my one of my other passions that I picked up. I did break my elbow last Thanksgiving, but it didn't deter me, right? Like this is just how I am. I just was like, okay, lesson learned. Next time I'll be smarter, I'll be faster, I'll look both ways and we won't happen again. We won't have that happen again. So yeah, that's me.
Wow, that was such a beautiful introduction. I kind of want to know like where do you get all of this resilience from because you have so many titles. You've gone and gotten your doctorate which takes a lot of work, okay? You're a
Yeah.
researcher. You have a full-time job, but you're also an entrepreneur. Like you are traveling. You look
Mhm.
really great, like amazing. Like where did the
Thank
resilience
you.
come from? How are you managing all of this?
This is an interesting question, right? And I think that in order for me to answer, I like to go back and I like to think about where I was, So I grew up in North Chicago, Illinois, which is about 30 miles north of the city of Chicago. I like to tell people I grew up in a very conservative religious household, which I won't go down and unpack that. That's another episode for another show. Um,
Right.
but what that experience did teach me is it taught me how to do a lot of faith work, a lot of reflective work, how to really understand myself and see myself and kind of know and have this awareness of my strengths, but then also the areas that sometimes I may need that little extra bit of support or that little bit of extra kind of structure in my life. And so that was the positive that I took away. And I also um, experienced a pretty significant health crisis. I was diagnosed in 2007 with Crohn's disease. And I battled that. I had multiple hospitalizations. I was out of work for a long time, living off of savings. I had to move back in with my parents at like 38, which was definitely not anything I had on my bucket list, I can guarantee you. But I was glad that I had that support and was able to do that. And I wanted to take advantage of what what seemed to be a dead end situation. I just couldn't really accept that. And so I took that time to nurture myself, to get back into education and to get those graduate degrees. And I reflected a lot about African religion. It kept taking me back to African tradition, African myths, African stories. And I kind of from that kind of that practice of connecting back to this African spirituality led me into this place of being comfortable being alone, being
Mhm.
comfortable being solitary, being comfortable being contemplative, right? Which I think a lot of times is hard to do. Like get off of social media, right? Pick up a book and read it. Sit with yourself in silence because to do that, that takes a lot of courage.
Mhm.
And that was courage that I did not have, but fortunately I tapped into. And I think from there, it really became where I got comfortable being by myself and I got comfortable listening to myself. I was alone. I was not in a relationship for 7 years. I didn't even date for 7 years, which a lot of people think is unheard of, but it happens, right? And it was the best, it was some of the best times of my life because it did center me. And
Mhm.
from there, once I kind of got out of that period and I came out, I was transformed, and I was clear in my purpose, I was clear in my intent. I was able to reflect and I was able to unapologetically say, this is what I'm here to do and I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to let any barriers get in my way. And that sounds cliche, but again, it means starting a business and saying, I'm going to specialize in Black girls and women. And I wrestled with that. Like, I was like, well, am I really like cutting myself off by doing that and limiting myself? And I was like, stop what you're doing, listen to what you're saying. This is who you are. This is the work you want to do. You have to do this work just like this for these girls and these women. No one else can do this but
Mhm.
you. So I think from there, it just kind of became this self-reflective, kind of real quiet space. And I pace myself. I don't go out a whole lot. I'm not trying to be on all of the listservs and doing all of the activities. I'm a self-soother, which means I much rather turn inside. I spend my time thinking, I spend my time writing. I'm a planner, I'm a strategist by my nature. And I like to play the long game, which is what I tell people. So for me, doing all of these things is just it's part of that vision that I have. But more importantly, I think it's it's just it's important. that I do it and I make time to get it done. Now, that does not mean that I don't hit a lot of obstacles, Aaliyah. That does not mean that it is easy, but it gets done.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your journey. That was so beautiful because we never know like what people truly go through until we ask. And I mean, you've overcame so much. Like I said, and I didn't even know the part about you overcoming Crohn's disease, right? I was just thinking, wow, you got your doctor, but you actually overcame like health complications, which
But yeah,
that can like that's a big thing, right? Like I know
yeah,
you talked about it and kind of glossed over, but that's like really huge, right? So I just want
yeah.
to just wow, commend you. You look real like I said again in the beginning, you look really great. Like I
Thank
would
you.
never know, you know? And so
Yeah.
I would love for you because I looked at your bio, right? And you called yourself the hype woman. And I kind of want to know where does that come from? What does that mean to you?
It means, so it kind of goes back to my dissertation. I had received a fellowship and I had 3 years, a full-time study to do this dissertation. And in December of 2020, I had to have a major surgery, and that was 6 months shy of when I was due to graduate. And I was in the hospital for a month. Everything worked out. Obviously, I'm still here. But it was difficult. It was challenging. I was in the hospital during COVID. I couldn't have any visitors. I was alone for basically 30 days in a hospital environment and really, really frustrated. And I came out of that. And the first thing I did when I got home was like, I'm going to hurry up and just finish this dissertation because I want to be done with it and I don't want it over my head anymore and I don't want any more setbacks. And I had my committee members, and I also had an external reader who is a gentleman. Um, he's a Hopi educator here in Arizona. He was Dr. Daryl Joseph. And I'll never forget, everyone was giving me feedback, and they're like, yeah, sure, go for it. We got your back, you can get it done. And he emailed me separately. And he said, I just want to, I believe that you can get it done. And he's like, I'm not on your committee, I'm an external reader. He said, but I just really want to encourage you to think about the work that you're doing, think about why you're doing it, and think about what you need. And I thought that that was unusual because he was the only man in my committee, in my dissertation space, but yet that message came from him.
Mm.
And it made me stop and it made me pause. And the one question that I asked myself out of all of that was, yeah, why am I doing this? And what am I sacrificing by trying to just push through here? And what I realized was I can get this dissertation done in 6 months, but is this the voice of these girls that I really want out in the world? Is this their story? Is it is it intentional? Is it purposeful? Does it truly reflect their pain, my pain, because I identify with a lot of these girls. I've interviewed the teachers that have been surveyed. I see myself in these stories, and I said no. That's not enough. And I actually ended up spending one more year. So I ended up graduating in 4 years. Unfortunately, the university was very kind and gave me an extra year of support there. But that's what I mean when I say the hype. I am the person who I feel my privilege, and it is privilege. I certainly feel that my privilege to have had the opportunity to get an education, had the opportunity to work in an institution of higher education. I think all of those experiences uniquely situate me in a place that is not accessible to a lot of people. And as a result of that, I have a little bit more responsibility in how I represent. And I know I can't represent all Black girls and all women, but in certain spaces, when you're talking about research spaces, when you're talking about education spaces, I do have the experience, the education, and the expertise to speak confidently about what that population needs. And I don't hesitate and I don't fall by the wayside. I don't ever let the privilege overshadow the work that still has to be done. And for me, that work is being the number one supporter of girls out there and women out there that look like me, that share my stories. I I believe in this. I'm the second youngest of 12 grandchildren on my mom's side, the youngest girl. And I had cousins that would, they taught me how to shave my legs for the first time. They would take me and be like, come on, we going to the store. And, they're like 20 and I'm like 9.
Right.
Those were the women. Those were my, those are my everything. Right. And so I'm out here unapologetically. I'm saying it loud. I am infiltrating power systems, institutions, and structure. We will dismantle from the inside out. These systems need to implode on themselves. It's never going to happen through brute force from the outside coming in. The systemic issues are too deep. We have to get players into the system who understand a mission and then let them get to it. And that's what I'm here to do.
That was powerful. That was really powerful. I would love for you, before we get more into your venture and talking about the work that you do, can you talk a little bit more about your research, the dissertation that you did, and what you found? Like, what were
Absolutely.
the end results?
Absolutely. So the research really started with um, me having this kind of being in this disability realm and understanding, having a foundational understanding of disability in educational settings, specifically special education. And when we use the term exceptional learners, that includes students with disabilities, but that also includes what are considered your gifted students, right? And in conversation with my executive director, she kind of mentioned this term. She said, oh, twice exceptional. And she went on about something. And I was like, I have never heard that before. So I stopped and I went and I started looking it up. And this was probably like my first year into my dissertation. So I was still very much into just coursework and hadn't gotten to the full research question yet. And when I started reading, I was like, what is that? I was like, okay, I know a lot of I know a lot of people that are like this. So twice exceptional is having a dual exceptionality as it would be defined in an educational setting. So that includes having some form of a learning disability. It could be autism, it could be behavioral, like oppositional defiance disorder, but then also having giftedness. So having high aptitude in one or more areas related to academics. It could be related to arts. A lot of gifts appear in girls of color through music, dance, and kinesthetic learning. These are gifts, right? They're able to really excel in these areas. And so I started to kind of unpack and think about, okay, so I think that there are more twice exceptional girls of color out there. But for
Mhm.
some odd reason, I kind of feel like the data is always telling me that girls of color, and especially Black girls, have high incidences of in-school discipline. They're always in-school detention,
Mhm.
expulsion, being placed in alternative learning environments, or being placed in special education. And once you have a child who is gifted, one of the main characteristics of that child when they're in an education that's not challenging is they act out.
Mhm.
I need more of a challenge. And if you're putting me in special education and I'm not supposed to be here, you're going to start to see more patterns. And those patterns are going to be met by discipline or one of these other power-based structures, discipline and surveillance, right? And so all of a sudden, we're starting to see this pattern. And so that's really kind of what my dissertation unpacked. It was a series of asking educators their perceptions. And really, it was looking at a sort of apathetic mindset that happens where I think a lot of times educators and even families know they have girls that have these gifts, but the system is designed, the institutional power is so nuanced and so complex that it is designed to beat people down. It is designed to take the spirit from you. And once that happens, you move from a state of anger and hatred and frustration into a state of apathy. And so I kind of went around and around and I talked about apathy and emergency crisis, and I pulled in a bunch of social psychology, which I won't go down that. But ultimately, what I found was that the girls identified as having in the literature and in the interviews, there were themes that came out, and the themes were definitely related to the girls identify. They know that they have these gifts. They know that they may also have a special education based need. But they recognize that they have two different needs and only one is being addressed. They resist they recognize and identify what acts of resistance are and how those acts of resistance are perceived as
Mhm.
insubordination or defiance. And so as a result of that, they rally around that in the act of reclamation, which is that third theme. So they identify, hey, I think I'm in the wrong place here.
Mhm.
They identify, I have to advocate for myself in this space because nobody else is going to do it. But when I do, I'm going to get in trouble. So then they reclaim, and they reclaim through things such as forming communities with each other and nurturing each other in that educational setting, or engaging in community mentorship opportunities, right? And so that reclamation theme is the theme that stood out the most to me. That was what I was hoping, that it was going to show that there is a form of community amongst these girls. And anytime you have a community, that community has needs, and we need to do better in addressing them.
Wow, that was beautiful research. Like, I think it's so important because we didn't, when I was going to school, it was like, okay, you have kids that are in special education, like classrooms, they're separate. We don't even really like communicate or interact with these. Sometimes they come into class, and sometimes, you see them and they're just like in the back of the class. It's just like, why are we treating people with special education like they're just some like foreign entity? I don't know. Like, I just don't understand. Like, it was just so weird growing up having that experience and not really being able to interact. And then also, like, with my own learning, like sometimes feeling like I needed more help than what I was getting, like maybe
Yeah.
nobody, like when I was trying to advocate for myself and tried to ask for help, it wasn't being received in a way that I felt like it needed to be received. And so, yeah, you do find like when you're not getting it from maybe like the person that you feel like you need to get that from, you do start to form communities and sometimes that's like where, not to even bring up the negative side of it, but sometimes that's where like gangs happen, right? When people don't feel
Yeah.
accepted into a community, or like they don't feel like their voice is being heard. So then, okay, I'm gonna go over here where my voice is being heard or where I can be accepted. And so I mean, that's just beautiful that you found that, like you said, at the end, these girls of this population was able to find community and build themselves up. Because it is hard being in a space where you don't feel validated. And I mean, I've had that experience. So I know that there's so many other people that have had that experience.
You're truly right. And I mean, I think what you're saying, if we think about what's happening in the world around us, there's a lot of things to unpack, and there's a lot of variables that go into why the advocacy in Black girls and Black women has to look different. Everything from social capital, cultural capital, which are, hey, my parents went to college, so I learned how to play the game, versus I'm a Black girl and I'm a first gen. I have no idea what I'm doing here. So there's a lot of different variables, I think, that definitely go into um, the advocacy component, and how that does look different. I just want to back up though to what you were saying about the experience of seeing special education students in the school, right? And I had the same experience growing up, and in my research, one of the things that I found, there was a social experiment from the late 1960s, and I won't go too much into it, but it's basically looking at what's called bystander apathy. And these social researchers, Lantane and Darley, they did this experiment, and they found 5 kind of like responses that people will do in a situation when they feel that there's a crisis, and or something that just is uncomfortable. It doesn't even have to necessarily be a crisis that I'm witnessing. It just has to be something that happened in the air that I'm like, that kind of doesn't feel 100% like it vibes with me. And what they found was there were all these 5 different ways that people respond. And one of the ones that they found was called the stooge response. And
Mm.
the stooge response was, somebody would walk in a room, and a plant, meaning one of the researcher teams, would already be in the room. And they were walking in, they were taking a test. That was the social experiment. Pretend like you're going in this room to take a test. And they walked in, and there would already be somebody from the researcher team in place. So this is where that deception comes in, right? Like, so this person walking in, I don't know that you're a researcher. I just walk into a space and you're in there. but you've already been in the space before I got in there. So I'm assuming you know a little bit more about the space than I do, right? Like I'm the second comer, you're the first comer. And then it would be this experiment where it would sound like somebody in the back room had fallen and hurt themselves. And what they found was that an instance when someone came into the room and that was already somebody in there and they perceived that person as having more power in that situation, they were less likely to do anything. And I think that speaks to what happens and the imprint that we put on our children and we put on our communities around people of color, around people who don't speak English as their first language, around people who have disabilities. This is what ends up happening. The dominant power in the world around us teaches us to be apathetic. It teaches us. We're children and we see what the teachers do. And if the teachers are treating the students like pariahs, if they're putting them in the basement, if they're shuffling them out of recess early, that we become the stooge, right? We become the person that looks at the teacher and says, well, if the teacher is doing it and the teacher is the person in this situation that has this power over me or over the situation, then I'm going to follow what they do. And it's a process that you learn and it's a process that you have to unlearn as well. And I think some people can unlearn it faster than other people, just maybe because of their specific personality types. Maybe it's because of their specific ethic or moral code. That these are things that are very, very real and are very social based phenomenon that we all experience, and we start experiencing them when we're very young too, like how you said, you remember distinctly those two things. One, special education students were treated differently, and two, I couldn't get what I needed by advocating this unless it was in a certain type of way. Yeah.
Hey. But that's one reason why I decided to homeschool is because I just didn't want my daughter to go
Mhm.
through the experiences that I went through. Because I can remember my schooling like it was yesterday. Like I can't remember what I learned, but I can remember how I was treated. Like I can remember my friends. I can remember how my teachers treated me. I can't even remember my teachers' names, but I remember how I was treated. And I think that's the most important thing when it comes to trying to teach a child or be an educator. It's like, how are you treating students? That's the way that you get a child to
Yeah.
learn, right? Is by building the relationship, by treating them, by building the trust. And if you don't do that and you go through school like continuously year after year with different teachers and you get different experiences, that has a effect on your identity, and how you navigate, like you said,
Mhm.
you navigate this world, whether it's confidently or not confidently. A lot of that schooling has an impact on that, especially like our experiences and how we, interact with our teachers and other students. So, wow.
It does. And especially if you think about how much time as a child, we primarily most children that are going to school Monday through Friday, 9 months out of the year, spend more time with their peers and sometimes with teachers and administrators than they do with their own parents. And
Yes.
that's not in a negative way. It's not to say, that parents can't, that there still can't be leverage. I mean, parenting is an amazing gift. It's a blessing, and you can certainly parent effectively 2 hours or 20 hours,
Right.
but it's the exposure piece, right? You have your child that is exposed to a different environment for 8 hours out of the 40 hours a week, basically, for 18 years of their life. Yeah, that's definitely going to impact how they perceive the world. It's going to impact and shape their personality. It's going to make them trusting of some situations, less trusting of other situations. It's going to help them identify how to think critically, how to
Mm.
ask questions. It takes me back to how you were saying, like sometimes these groups and these communities form because you have people or kids that are in school and they just are sometimes searching for a place to belong. I mean, that's happening today. We see even in politics, right? We have
Mhm.
an entire, on both sides of the spectrum, we have entire groups of people who are aligning themselves with information and with a mindset that they've not thought critically about themselves because they want to belong. I need to belong to a group. I need to feel safe and connected to a social identity right now. And no one else has accepted me. So this is the one that will take me. and that's where I'm going to go. And that happens on both sides. You know, there, it doesn't really, this isn't specific to any one particular political ideology, but it does happen.
That's so powerful. Just to think about it. Now, this is something that we could talk about for a very long time, but I'm a
Off record, off camera.
right. I'm gonna move forward because I'm just like really stuck in that. But I'm gonna just move forward because I really want to get into your
Yeah,
venture. We met through 4.0. So I have been interviewing a lot of founders. I even interviewed a coach as well through 4.0. But I always like to tell my audience that, we won a grant, okay, for our venture. Now, this is my first grant. I don't know if this is your first grant, but this is my like very first grant. So I'm feeling
congrats.
elated. Thank you. Like, yeah,
Congratulations.
I'm just feeling so elated, right? And I'm just like, wow, I get to be connected with so many founders. And so I would love for us to get into your venture. Can you tell us what your venture is, the work that you're doing, and why you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what my pilot proposal and what my proposal for this grant included was I had started work. I continued work off of my dissertation, and so for the past 2 years, I had been doing workshops at a conference here in Phoenix, the African American Conference on Disabilities, and I had been leading workshops specifically looking at girls and women, and kind of collecting some data and some feedback. And the last time I held the workshop last summer, with several attendees that we ran out of time in both of the workshops, and it was just this insights that were just pouring forth. And I really wanted intentional space to go deeper. I had like, 50 plus people that attended these workshops that were all like, please keep doing this. Please bring it back. Give us the opportunity to talk more about these topics. And so that's how it started in 4.0. And as I worked with my coach was Coach NECA. So yay, hey, shout out.
Yeah.
As I worked with my coach on the pilot program, I'm giving her all of this information, and she says something to me one day, and she just says, "This is great, but what is your solution?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, the solution, right? Like I should be proposing that." So I went back through and I started to think about what are some of the other things that are on the periphery that I've been interested in and toying around with, and it actually brought me full circle to artificial intelligence. And I've had several, I don't want to go down there, but I've had several conversations, and I have my viewpoint on artificial intelligence is pretty straightforward. It's a three-pronged thing. One, it's here to stay, whether we like it or not. Two, you can think about AI as like the first time that humans got fire or invented the wheel, right? It has the potential to change how we as humanity evolve. And three, I don't want to have to be having a conversation 10 years down the road about the need to decolonize AI
Mhm.
when we have the opportunity to be in AI space now and build platforms and systems that already are going to work for us. And so that was what my pilot was. My pilot was I've been working and had been having some conversations with people in the community, and I ended up getting connected with a computer scientist in Texas who has already developed a platform specifically for young Black youth or youth of color between the ages of 5 and 13 called Kid Spark. And he was toying around with me, and then my program is called Magpie Minds. And so we started bringing them together. And he's like, hey, you write some curriculum. I've got the platform. You got the kind of the knowledge. I've got the tool. He was like, what if we took your idea and just saw what AI could do with it? And I was like, I think I want to see where this is going. And so from there, that was kind of where the solution came in. The solution came in that I originally was proposing kind of like a micro school, specifically designed to to have the learning experience be led by the Black experience for Black girls and men, which means that anytime you're doing a project, whether it's social studies or math, you're having to bring in an Afrocentric concept. So if you're talking about math, I need you to explain to me a tribal-based concept from North, South, East, West Africa that use this same math concept, and how did they apply it, right? And so I said, well, and he was like, well, what if we went digital with it? He said, what if I could put it in a platform where it became these digital nests for your magpie girls, right? And I was like, oh, a digital nest, I like that. And so that's what my pilot was. It was taking the idea that he and I are already working on, and KidSpark is up. So I'm going to put a little plug out and say, you know, if you do not follow me on LinkedIn, please do. Sakénya McDonald. You can also find me at www.deniese, Deniese, and co.com. Okay, but that was that. But that's where you will find the KidSpark Magpie Minds. We're going to be looking for some families to pilot my curriculum in the KidSpark platform. And so looking for girls like 14 to 18, 13 to 18, get in there, play around with it. You can't break it. Give us your feedback. And I've already heard from the community what their concerns were. So I was able to run my pilot, get a community forum going, got some great data. I've already analyzed that data to pull out where their concerns were. And what they felt like AI could do, like where in terms of like accessibility, it could be better, or language, right? Like what type of language should it be coded to understand? And so we kind of unpacked all of that. And so I'm really excited. I was able to use this space through 4.0 to come in with, you know, hey, I've already got some feedback from other work that says people want me kind of talking about this some more. And then I came in with kind of this idea, right? Like we talked about in the logic model the other day. I think I know, I have an assumption. I think I know it's going to work here. And then I kept networking. I kept talking to people. I kept seeing connections. I kept bringing it more modern. I kept trying to get it into the AI and tech space and the STEM space, because that's where it belongs.
Mm.
And from there, you know, doors just started opening, and it was like, okay, I'm ready to launch this KidSpark Magpie Minds mashup and see where it goes. And so that's where we are. That is where I am currently.
Wow. So just to reiterate, is the platform full of lessons that are centered around the Black woman
Mhm.
experience?
It is. So
Wow.
the way that it'll work is a family, if they're interested, and I'll definitely make sure for any of your followers, Aaliyah, that want this, that want to try to sign up and be one of the trial families, I'll make sure that they get in. But what it is that they will go into this AI platform, which will be the KidSpark platform. And then once they're in there, they will get access to the Magpie Mind curriculum. And what will happen is the curriculum is in there. So there are lessons, and there's 5 different lessons. So the first one is on working with the girls on how do you build a social identity. And so what will happen is it'll be some exercises. So the first one might be use AI to identify 5 Black women mentors, right? And so they would go in and they would say, AI, give me 5 Black women who were revolutionary in the history of humanity. And it might pull up everybody from Harriet Tubman, it might pull up Angela Davis, Kamala Harris, it might pull up anybody, right? And so then the girls would move to their second part of that activity. Okay, now that you've got some, work through these personalities to see. And what I'm trying to do is at the end of that module, the girl will have created for herself a digital identity. The digital
Mm.
identity will be authentic, but it will also be rooted in qualities and traits and characteristics of Black women that she can emulate or that she can look up to. And the reason why we want to lead off with that digital identity is because we want to also stress on the safety end to young, impressionable Black girls. Learn how to use the internet and AI responsibly. Know that you have a digital footprint. Once you put it out into the world, this is who the world is going to see you as, and it will follow you. It's out there, right? So learn how to create a digital platform, an avatar for yourself that truly reflects your heritage, your culture, and who you are, and does so in a way that continues to build upon the lineage of other amazing Black women, whoever they may be, that came before you. And then they moved to the next curriculum and, you know, the next module, and they would work through all 5, hopefully, and not,
Wow.
not get too bored or not give up on it. But since AI is there, the AI gives them a very interactive component. They'll be able to talk to the AI and have it give them responses back. So there's the interactive piece. It's not just going to be like, okay, I got to sit here and write out a paper long form. I'm engaging kind of with this personalized learning tutor. But anything that I ask it to do, it's going to go through the lens of, okay, we're going to start with what is notable in Black or African culture first. That's the first response it's going to give you. And then if you keep pushing it from there, it'll start to bring in other cultures into the response, and you can still get a full experience.
Wow, that honestly, that's really cool. Like, I kind of wish I had that. Like, especially in high school. What? Like, I
Yeah,
can go in and create my own little personality and it be inspirational. Because we do that all the time
exactly.
on the internet now, right?
Mhm.
Like, there's so many things out here where you can change your face, you can look
Yeah,
this way, you can come up
yeah.
with this, and wow, that
Yeah,
is
I
that's
I want it to be, I want it to be like, my goal is I would love to have it be a community of AI girl users that's global, where they
wow.
could even have what are called like these, like the digital nest, which will house all of their personalized information, and they can share that nest with another girl. They could share their nest with a girl in Africa if they wanted to, or someone living in India. And not only that, but it'll pull these profiles and it'll kind of like the old fashioned concept of a pen pal. It'll
Yeah,
kind of do that, right? Like it'll take your digital identity and then it'll say, hey, look, here are some girls that are also users on this platform. So you know it's safe, you know
yeah.
it's secure, right? That have some of your shared characteristics. Think about connecting with them because you both like aviation or you both like biochemistry or whatever it may be, right? And they can have this now, you be even using AI to build like
Connect.
a collectiveness, right? Like now I'm
Yeah.
engaging with this girl in India, or I'm talking to someone in Australia, and my goal is that no Black girl, and especially those in predominantly white spaces, like I am right now, living in Flagstaff, Arizona, where it's 3% Black population, and
Wow.
there's like 4 tenured faculty that are Black women at my university, very isolating. And my goal is if I can build this platform out and make it big enough and robust, no matter where you are, if you're a Black girl and you're tapped into this network, you have a community and it's accessible to you. And that community can be from anywhere around the world.
Oh my goodness. I love that. Look, I want to sign on to the track. I know I'm not 14 through 18. But I mean, that just sounds, I mean, it just reminds me of literally like some of the games we used to play where we could create our own avatar. We would be in a different
Yeah,
world and it kind of reminds me of that, but like more educational,
yeah,
more like
exactly.
in community.
You're
Wow.
you're they're customizing their educational experience, but because it is informed by curriculum, they still have learning outcomes and they still have activities and assignments and assessments. So how they go about using AI to create or to engage or to analyze, that is really personal and specific to them. But they're going to move through the curriculum that's already pre-established and put in place to ensure that by the time they sign up, they do all of their assignments as they're supposed to have them done and get ready to move into the next module, they still met those very rigorous, evidence-informed scientific learning outcomes. And they didn't even realize it was all that intense, right? To them, they were just like, and that takes me back really quickly, Aaliyah. I mean, that's the history of education. The history of education, we started education because we needed to get children ready to go off into the workforce.
Right.
Education became really revolutionized. It became this concept of children learn through play. That is
Mm.
how we learn, And so when you can create an opportunity for children to be curious, to be safe, to get access to their culture and images and people and ideas that look and reflect them, and they're playing kind of while they're doing it, they're learning, and I think it does become exactly the type of environment that I know I would have needed also.
Oh my goodness, such a like wow. I want to ask you this question because I think it's so important because
Yes.
you talk about centering the Black woman and girl experience. Why is that? Why is centering more important than like including?
That's a great question. So I'm thinking of including as we have something that is already happening, and we want to make sure that we're going to invite someone else in to something that we may or may not have built ourselves. Centering means we are building it going out with us in mind. Centering it means that the process, the curriculum as I'm writing it, the research that I'm conducting to create it, the platform and the coding that is actually happening, right in the center of that is the Black girl experience as we know it. And of course, again, it can't all be all encompassing because depending on your religion, you could be Muslim and be a Black girl and still have very different ideologies and beliefs than a Christian who's a Black girl, right? And so I understand it can't be all inclusive, but it
Mm-hmm.
can certainly, using what we do know, can be a start. And then, of course, it'll get changed and we'll update it and we'll tweak it the more we know. But including is kind of where AI is right now, right? Like it was not built and designed by Black women. It was 1956. Some scientists said, hey, I'm gonna come up with this idea, and it's been going ever since. And we are just now getting included into the AI conversation and or within the last 15, 20 years, I would say. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because now it's like, okay, well, we know the tool is here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's get on board and let's use it. But you can be included, which is what we're doing now as women of color, but then also be centered, which is what I'm trying to do. Hey, I'm going to take something that's here. This whole thing wasn't really built for me, but it's flexible and it's moldable, and I can create something that is built for me. And I think that that's the difference of how I'm looking at this Magpie Mind and Kids Park. We are centered. We are everything that we do is going to start with the intentionality of creating a wholesome experience for Black girls and women. Because when Black girls and women benefit, I everybody benefits, and that is fact.
So, what does it look like when Black women and girls are validated in learning spaces? Like, can you give us a picture of that? Like, what is your hope or imagination for that?
I think I think that education fundamentally looks different. I mean, I think that there's choice. I think education should revolve around choice, and I think that that's really what it is all about. If we're talking about, again, one of the things that I talk about is I if I were not in this life, I would probably have been a physicist because I have this obsession with relativity, right? And so no one explained to me relativity outside of x plus y equals z plus z, and it's like I don't understand what you're talking about. And then all of a sudden, I first learned that relativity was a thing because someone told me a story. Okay, so you're here, but you're here, and it's 2 hours here, but it's only 10 minutes for them. And I was like, wait a minute, was that magic? Did something just happen here and I missed it? And I realized they were like, no, that's relativity. Okay, great. So I think validating experiences are experiences that start with choice. You're giving your daughter a lot of choices just by homeschooling. A lot of the other founders in our 4.0 cohort are creating choice for
Mm-hmm.
learners. If you're disabled, if you're LGBTQIA plus, and
Mm-hmm.
you in mainstream traditional education isn't working, homeschooling can work. Micro pods can work, micro schooling can work, charter schools, right? And it just, the more choice that we give and the more that we make it accessible, because that's the other part, right? Like we can create something, but if people can't get to it,
Mm-hmm.
which is the joy and one of the benefits of using AI, it can be a relatively accessible tool
Yeah.
contingent upon Wi-Fi access. Then people get the choice. And I think through the choice gets the validation. And it says, we see you and we see you enough to know that what is working over here isn't for you, but here's 16 different other things that you can choose from. Pick one. And I think that's, to me, I think that that's how it is. I mean, I could go into, in the classrooms and what teachers could say and what they could do, but I think, again, we got to unpack a lot of systemic things before we get to that point as a culture.
I am a big advocate for school choice. So I love that you said that because it really is that, right? Like giving options, having choice, and being the center of like creating the choice, right? Because you are creating change and choices for the way that Black girls see themselves online. I think that's so beautiful. I would love to know, like, what were some challenges or what challenges do you still face, like getting your framework
Mm.
to be adopted and maybe like institutions or maybe partners with other companies.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I want it to be like money, but money, full stop. We're gonna say
Right.
that. Moving on. Yeah. No, but I say that kind of jokingly, but not really. And I think that that's what any entrepreneur, that's always at the front of your mind. I think for me right now, one of the biggest challenges is I am transitioning from an academic space to a business space. And
Mm,
it's a whole new, there's all kinds of different languages and terms. And I'm always like, what if somebody's trying to scam me? And,
mm,
there's these moments I'm waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning with a brainstorm idea, and then I've got to wake up and actually go to work, in 4
mhm,
hours. And so trying to find the balance of having a job that I'm still deep, committed to, and that I find rewarding, and that is where I am employed. That is my job, working at the university. But then also trying to find time to, okay, like you say, I've got to learn. Like I recently applied to become a women-owned business. And not like just in name only, but to actually get the federal designation, because that's how you access procurement systems and you get more money and all of this. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, Aaliyah, I wrote a whole dissertation. This process, when they're like, oh, well, we have people that you can pay that will help me being very frugal. I was like, I'm not paying for that. I could certainly figure this out. Oh, I figured it out all right. It took me 2 months to get, I mean, like I was like, I had to go into this application portal probably 25 times. And I was reading and rereading just because I didn't know what I was doing, right? But now I know, and the beauty of that, now that I know, is I can show someone else what I know, right? And so that, I think for me, that's the biggest challenge, just trying to really maintain balance, keep my priorities in place, and learn this entire new world of being an entrepreneur, and, you know, kind of jumping in feet first. And it's simultaneously terrifying, but also it is that 2 o'clock in the morning aha moment that I love those too. So it works, I think.
That is, listen, you are not alone. I've heard this a lot from entrepreneurs. We are all kind of like in the same boat. Of course, yes, trying to find the fundraising or the money for it is a lot of work. But nobody talks about like the business, but like your business behind it, like the backing endings of business. It's a lot of work.
That's a lot.
And we don't get taught like that's something we just don't get taught in school. You have to go to college and get a degree in business to learn something like that.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
find I
No,
mean,
I know I'm still making several mistakes. I mean, I think what works in my favor is that like I said at the onset, I like to play the long game. I'm a very patient person, and I think that that's one thing that works in my favor. I don't ever feel the need. I'm never pressed, and I never feel the
mm,
need to do anything or get anywhere other than where I'm at right now and where I will be. I'll be where I'll be, right? And so I think in that instance, that does, when something comes across my path, I'm a researcher by nature because of my education, but then I'm also patient. And I think that those are fortunately two traits that as an entrepreneur are definitely benefiting me, because it is helping me not go into things hastily, not make rash decisions, not go for something that on the surface looks good and in 10 years down the road is going to come back and bite me. And that
mm,
doesn't mean I'm not going to make a mistake. I'm guaranteed to make a mistake. I already know that. And I probably already have made one. But I'm going to be trying my very best to do that component, build and really build my business from the ground up, bootstrap style. And then, once I get a handle on it, I feel like the other components, the passion, the curriculum, the technology, the community that I'm working with, the research and education component, all of those things are already there. I just need to figure out how to execute. So that'll take a little bit of time, I think.
I feel you. I'm listen. I feel this. I love how you said I'm not pressed, okay? Because it's just like, yeah, like
No, I'm never
that's
pressed.
the reason to,
No.
rush into what you truly want, right? You got to make sure that you lay out the foundation, that you get it right. And for me, I'd rather take that time now, getting things right, than rushing
Mhm.
and trying to figure things out on the back end. No. So
Hey, I said, look, I said I was 7 for single years. So that
Right.
should that should tell you something about. Well, I'm gonna take when I say I am not pressed, I am not pressed. When it's meant to be, it will be, and it will be right, and it will be beautiful. So there you have it.
Listen, I love that. I have 2 more questions before we kinda, like, wrap up, and if there's anything that you wanna say, like, let it all out. But I would love to know, like, when was there a moment that you felt the impact of your work? Like, you knew, like, "Yes, I this is what I wanna do for the rest of my life," or, "This is what I wanna do."
Mhm. I wouldn't say that it was necessarily impact as much as it was affirmation.
Mm,
And I think that they can both be meaningful. I hope I don't think that this individual will mind me sharing their story. I'm not gonna say any personal identifying information. I had someone tell me recently, a woman of color, that when she was in school, she had a teacher, and the teacher was really, really harsh in dealing with her, and just really never really supported her, belittled her, really kind of antagonized her. And she said, that this might have been elementary school, somewhere around that time in her life. And she said that she had, she was in high school and taking college classes as a high school student, but she was working at McDonald's. And she said the
mm,
teacher came into McDonald's and looked at her working there, didn't know that she was working at McDonald's to pay for the college classes that she was taking. This woman had no idea of that. And she said, and she looked at her and she said, I always knew that you would end up here. And like that to me, like I get really emotional just even thinking about that. Like, wow, the the
mm,
what type of person you have to be to actually say that to someone else. And I think that's the impact moment for me, because I know that what happened to this woman that I just had this conversation with is happening, and it continues to happen. And the videos of Black girls being put in handcuffs and dragged out of classrooms, um, the adultification that happens to 12-year-old girls that are being, you're being too fast, and I'm 12. What do you mean I'm being too fast? If I'm being
mm,
too fast, it's because you're the adult and you're not, your mind ain't right, because I'm
mm,
12, I'm a child.
mm,
Um, so I think that that is where that, again, it's not the impact, because the impact I feel like is still kind of this thing on the horizon. But I do see the stories that
mm,
happen in the spaces that I create. I see the pain. I feel the tears, but I also see the optimism. And I also see the rallying and the support and the people stepping forward of all ethnicities and ages and backgrounds, saying, please do this. Yeah, because girls should not be in an environment where they are being exposed to so much negative energy, without having an out, without
mm.
having a choice, without having another option. So I think that's really it for me. It's the stories that I've heard that just touch me to my bone. And I my love language is acts of service. So I show people that I love by doing, and that's why I'm doing it, because of the stories, because of the people telling me, like, coming forward, like, yeah, we need it. Keep going, keep doing it.
I love that. So to end our podcast, what are the hopes for your work, and what advice would you give to the black girl or the black woman that you aspire to help?
Hmm. I think my hopes are to be successful. I definitely want to get Magpie Minds up off the ground. I've got a bunch of other things that I'm doing, writing poetry and trying to write a mystery novel, but we won't talk about that right now. So
Ah,
those are my other hopes. Like, I hope all of those things work out as well while this is working out. But all seriousness, I mean, I want to see. I don't right now. I don't even really hope for success. I hope to know, if that makes sense, which means that this launch of KidSpark / Magpie Minds is it's going to answer some questions that I am really anxious to get answered. And so that is the next step. That is success at this moment, which is getting just to that step to be able to say, oops, got some questions answered. because every time the questions are answered, every time the feedback is there, the opportunity to keep making it better just keeps opening itself up to you. And as long as you have a door that keeps opening, you know you're growing, right? Like the minute that the door is closed, the minute the feedback stops, the minute the questions don't get asked anymore, that's danger
Mhm.
zone, right? And so I think that's my hope. That's my just to get the thing off the ground and get it out and get people, please sign up for this. Um, and I think that you know, what advice, wow, would I give? I think I would just give the advice that we're out here. You know, you are not alone. And I know that that sounds cliche. Wherever you are, whatever you're going through right now, Black women are going to be your community. We are going to be, we're going to be your foundation. We're going to be your roots and your wings, right? And don't, don't feel discouraged, because my story, I'm telling you, if anybody could overcome, I mean, growing up almost in a cult,
Mhm.
having major operations, being hospitalized several times in my life, you know, all of these things that I've gone through, and still walking through the room as Dr. McDonald.
Mhm.
I grew up and I never saw a woman in my community that looked like me. I never knew a woman in my community that even had a bachelor's degree. And
Mhm.
so you can definitely do it. They are out there. We are out here. We're 100% behind you. And just put, you know, do it. Like, go ahead, take your rest, girlfriend, little sister, because we about to come up.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just unavoidable. So just get ready for the wave, because it's coming.
I love that. You are so
Coming.
motivational and inspirational. Where can the people find you? Like, what services do you offer, or where
Right.
can we find you?
Right. Well, for the consulting services, which is, hey, that's kind of the, if you really want to get technical and talk about some research and knowledge mobilization, community-based research plans, okay. www.denise, DENIESE, and co.com, deniseandcompany.com. You can also just Google search. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find Magpie Minds on LinkedIn. I have magpieminds.com. I'm all over the place. So if you got Denise and Company, you can certainly link up with all of my platforms there. But if you just absolutely are like, I cannot keep up, lady, with everything that you have going on, you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at founder@deniseandco.com. And of course, you can always reach out to Aaliyah, because I like to think that my sister over here has my back, and she
Yes,
will put you in touch with me if the situation so calls for it.
I definitely do. Okay.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
also, your information will be in the video description so people can definitely check you out. Thank you so much for joining me on Daily Conversations. I really appreciate it. You all do not forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode.
Thank
Peace.
you, everyone. Bye.